Hey there, so those were arpeggios. I was practicing some arpeggios from this book, my new book, Tim Miller Arpeggio Technique Volume 1, 212. 212 Arpeggio Technique Volume 1 by guitarist Tim Miller. So this is a new book. It's published this year, I think. And you can't get a physical copy, I don't think. I ordered it, or you download it from his website, and I link to it. And then I printed it out like this, so I like to have it in a binder like this. Okay, so I have to be careful when I cover this book, because I don't want to give away too much of his ideas, because they're his ideas. I want you to go and get the book for yourself. But I will explain what this book is about, why I think you should get it. And as always, if you follow my channel, you know that I love books and that I always try to find a way to incorporate what I'm learning in the book into my own practice routine and into my own vocabulary to help me improve my jazz language, hopefully. So I'll show you how I do that. And yeah, let's get right into it. Okay, so I'll tell you what he says a little bit here in the beginning, in the introduction. So the 212 system is pretty self-explanatory. I think you will realize pretty soon. He says here, it doesn't aim to replace traditional methods. It is considered an important addition to the existing guitar pedagogy. I think that's very interesting, because that's what I try to do, right? I try to add to the stuff that I already know. These shapes are not necessarily new. What is new is the expansion of the basic idea and its vast modal implications all of the guitar neck. So I counted, this is all about arpeggios, right? I try to figure out how many arpeggios that are in this book, and I think it's got to be over 500, if not even more. There's like 200 pages, and there's like 20 arpeggios on every page like that. So there's a lot of arpeggios in this book, for sure. A basic understanding of modes will help when using this book. I would change that to a basic understanding of modes is necessary, because I can't see how you could use this book if you don't understand modes. So let's get right into it. So the 212, all it is 2 notes on a string. If we play an arpeggio, let's say A minor 7 arpeggio, I play 2 notes on one string, the low A string, and then 1 note on the next string. 2 notes, 1, 2 note, and 1. So I guess a better name would be 2-1-2-1-2-1, but he calls it 2-1-2. So this is an A minor 7 arpeggio played with that technique. He has a very specific ways that he picks it with hybrid picking. I don't do that because I don't hybrid pick. I'll see if I can find that video and I'll link to that. There's a video where he explains that system. He doesn't explain that in the book, I don't think. This is not a method book. This is just the arpeggios, a compilation of all these possibilities. Okay, so now let's say you want to expand on this arpeggio. You want to find new ways to play some kind of arpeggio instead of always playing that. So there's, in the beginning of the book, he explains there's certain shapes that you can come up with when you think 2 notes, 1 note, 2 notes, 1 note. And I'm not going to give away those shapes, but one, for example, would be exactly that, like a minor triad. So let's say I'll continue with the same shape on the next set of strings, and the next set of strings. That would be one of the finger combinations that you can come up with. There are way more, and obviously you could figure it out yourself, but it's nice to have a book like that where it's all laid out so you can just kind of go through it. Now, this is not a very useful arpeggio, because it doesn't really apply to any tonal situation. So what he does next is he adjusts the notes so that it fits a mode. So let's say A minor, like Dorian or Aeolian. All I have to do is change the B flat to a B natural. Now you have 3 triads, but don't necessarily think of it like that. Think of it more like those shapes. Let's say I wanted to make that some kind of major. That could be a Lydian chord. So see how you can apply the same shape, finger shape, to different modes, right? So we were here. So now instead of this, so this is a new arpeggio that we could use over an A minor chord. It's a very nice. You notice, by the way, that I use legato, right? He doesn't really tell you to do that, but I think that's the best way to do this. So I do a little bit of, I guess it's sweep picking, but it's not really sweep picking because I tend to attack the notes. Even if the pick is going the same direction. So that's how I do that. So you might play this with a different technique. You might want to try the hybrid picking, or you might have more of a picking approach. Doesn't matter. So now we have a new arpeggio. So then he'll take those shapes and combinations of those finger shapes, and he can come up with all these different shapes. So this is Ionian. So 20 different shapes. And then he'll do all the modes. So the modes that he covers are major scale modes, melodic minor, harmonic minor scale modes, harmonic major scale modes, harmonic major. Other scales, pentatonics, whole tone, whole half, half whole diminished, augmented scale, the 9-note symmetrical scale. So this takes it pretty far. And then finally the chromatic scale. Then he talks a little bit about articulation and tempo as well at the end. But it's pretty much, it's not a method book. It doesn't say do this first day and the next day do this. It just shows you all the combinations of. So it's written out as notation, and then with tabs, and then on the following pages he gives you the chord diagrams or the fretboard diagrams like that, which is really nice to have. Okay, so now that we have the system and how it works, and again I'm just giving you a little bit of that. There's way more to it if you get the book. Let's try to apply this to a music situation. So let's pick a tune that has a lot of major 7 chords. Forest Flower, it's a great tune. It starts with a bunch of major chords. So let's say I want to practice my arpeggios playing over that tune, and I'll start with just looping those first 4 chords. So what I would do normally, you know, I would play some arpeggios like this. Oh yeah, I should also mention that he also starts the arpeggios on the 5th string. So I'm just starting on the 6th string for this video, but if you get the book, it will also give you arpeggios starting on the 5th string as well. So I would play like that. Right? There's nothing wrong with it. Maybe go up there. Right? Maybe I will go up to the 9th sometimes. But basically, that's it. And if you think about it, I always play those, and then I play. When I hear my own playing, it's always the same. The same shapes that I tend to do. There's nothing wrong with that. We all have our pet phrases, right? But this book, more than 500 shapes, or arpeggio shapes, or whatever you want to call them, and I only have 2. Well, I have more, right? And I have some licks that I do that combines different, and you can superimpose arpeggios. So it's not that I always play the same thing, but I could definitely take this book and find more ways to play these arpeggios. So we'll do that right now, and then I'll also explain. There's a little bit of a danger here. It's not a criticism of the book in any way, but rather how I practice. There's a trap you can fall into when you practice this kind of stuff. So I'll get to that. But first off, so let's find a new arpeggio. So I'll take this shape. Start on A. So that's like a kind of a sus shape. A sus2 shape. So I could do that here and there. So that's another A major arpeggio. So I'm not really concerned if it's like what I should call that technically, like a 9, 13, or major 13. I just think of it as a shapes, finger shapes. So let's do that arpeggio over the same chord progression. From the top note as well. Right? So already I have a whole new shape that I can use that sounds totally different, sounds more modern, sounds more kind of saxophone piano-like, I guess. So just a word about this stuff. So something that happens with me when I practice this kind of stuff is that I get a book like this, I get super excited, and it's like, oh my goodness, there's all these 20 arpeggios for a let's say a major 7 chord. I'm gonna do all of them. So I'll do a page a day for like a half an hour. So I've been doing that. I'm not even through. I'm like halfway through this book. And I do the next set of arpeggios the next day, and then Dorian the third day, and what have you. And I think everything is going great. I'm learning all these arpeggios, right? Then you go to play on your jam session or a gig or whatever, and you're still back to this. The same shapes you always played, and none of this stuff shows up in your playing. Right? I mean, I've been playing these shapes for maybe 30 years. So it's not likely that I'm all of a sudden going to change my playing, right? Plus, Tim Miller has a very, very different way of playing guitar from how I play the guitar. I come from like an archtop playing background and playing acoustic guitars where you have to kind of dig in and play every note. He's got a very light, if you watch his video, it looks like it looks so effortless, like he's not doing anything. He's just flying over the fretboard. My goal is not to become Tim Miller, even though it would be nice to be that great. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not changing my playing. I want to take this stuff that he's laid out for me, and try to get it into my own playing, but it doesn't show up in my playing, right? And that can be very frustrating, because then it feels like, oh my God, I practiced for a half an hour every day for months and nothing happened. Well, it's because you're practicing wrong. Okay? Imagine if you go to the gym and you just pick up the weights every day, a little bit of each and one of do every exercise in the gym, every set of weights or whatever, and then nothing's going to happen. You have to stay with one exercise or a few muscle groups, right? If anybody who works out knows about this. You work out a few muscle groups one day, and then you rest, and then gradually. So this is a little bit the same thing with this. Another analogy would be, let's say I want to learn a new language. I want to learn English. And somebody gives me like 200 words. And I try to learn all of them. I sit at home and I study these words. And then I try to speak, nothing comes out. As opposed to if somebody tells me something in a context, a word, the proper way to use a word, and it makes sense. Aha, that's when and how you use that word. Then it's going to stick. So you have to kind of do that with this too. So it's better to stay with maybe one arpeggio or two arpeggios and try to really get it into your playing. So what I do, I mark down the ones that I like, because I like more shapes better than others. And then I keep coming back to that shape. So this one, for example, that we just did. So you take all the tunes you know, not all, but go to the iReal book or however you're practicing standards, and try if you can get this arpeggio into your playing. Kind of force it in when you're practicing, because you don't want to force it in when you're actually performing, because that's not the mindset you want to be in when you're playing. You just want to play and hear what you're hearing and stuff. Okay, and then another thing, so this is something I came up with. This is not from the book now, this is my own take on it. If I've played arpeggios this way for 30 years, chances are that I am going to play it like this in the future as well. So there's nothing that says that you have to play the whole arpeggio the way he does. So let's say I want to start like I usually do, and then change into that kind of shape. So this is a hybrid of the generic arpeggio that I've been playing for 30 years and merging it in with this new concept. Since I'm so used to starting the arpeggio this way, you know what I mean? So let's try that. how I used to play and mixing it in with the new stuff that I'm learning. That hopefully will speed up the process of incorporating this new stuff to the stuff that I already know. Okay? We're practicing several things here. We're adding new stuff to our vocabulary. That's the main purpose of this practicing. But we're practicing technique. This is legato is something that I haven't talked about, and practicing legato is very important for developing good guitar technique. Any classical guitarist will tell you they have, practice routines for legato playing. And it's a little bit of ear training too, right? To hearing these shapes, you could, obviously you could try to sing them too. So another way I use this stuff is to just practice technique and making it kind of fun. So you can take an arpeggio that is a little bit more challenging, like maybe this one. So that would be kind of C Lydian. So the trick when you're playing legato is to make it even, right? So it's not. It should almost sound like the notes you're not attacking with your picks are attacked, so it's kind of like deceiving, like which notes are actually being picked or which ones are hammered on, or shouldn't be able to tell if you do it proper. So let's do that one, and then I'll take maybe C, I don't know, E major and A flat major. That's a good combination. And I'll just practice that. Sloppy. Right? So you want to make sure that they're even, that your picking hand is relaxed, and so this is also kind of like a solo guitar technique, right? It's almost like a sax player, because sax players can't play chords. So when they play solo by themselves, sometimes they'll play these arpeggios to create the illusion of chords going by, right? So for example, listen to Michael Brecker play Naima. Also, Chris Potter does this quite a lot, like solo saxophone. So they can play these shapes to create the sound of a chord, in this case a C, some kind of C Lydian sound, right? Okay, so that's how I use this book. I use it to expand on my vocabulary, to create more interesting arpeggio sounds. Oops. And to work on technique and coming up with arpeggio shapes that you could actually use as a solo performance technique. So 247 pages of arpeggio goodness. The Tim Miller 212 arpeggio system is designed to give guitarists a creative and ergonomic, interesting way to easily and instinctively invent arpeggio materials for improvisation and composition. It uses the strengths of the guitar and its tuning system to allow for new note combinations previously not utilized by guitarists. This new approach will expand improvisational skills, fretboard knowledge, and the ability to play arpeggios with greater speed and accuracy. Standard notation, tab, and fretboard diagram guide you through the process of learning, designing, and mastering Tim Miller's 212 arpeggio technique. There's also room for designing your own arpeggios, right? So this, by the way, is volume 1. I wonder what the next volume will be. Tim, if you're watching, which I highly doubt that you are, but if you are, let us know what's going to be the next volume, when it's coming out. So what this book is not, it's not a method book. It doesn't explain the theory behind it. You have to kind of, it's assumed that you know what the modes are. And it also doesn't give you arpeggios this way. It's very kind of in the same position, right? But if you do this, it will automatically lead you to be able to combine them in more in this way. But it would be nice with a system that kind of gives you larger arpeggios too. I guess that could be the next volume, or maybe there's another number combination, who knows. But I say this a lot, but this is the best book I've seen in a while. This is the best book I've seen coming out on the market since Miles Sokasaki's book that came out a few years back, Fundamentals of Guitar. So definitely check out Tim Miller's webpage. There's also lessons that you can download. I think you can, there might even be like a community of students or something. I haven't checked out that, but it looks very interesting. So go to his webpage and download this book. You won't be disappointed, and thanks for watching, and I shall see you next time.